So today's date is July 24th, 2022, and I'm here interviewing Marjorie Pauline Preble Adams. Thank you so much for being here today. And I just want to ask you, what is the date of your birth? When were you born?
I was born in May 31st, 1921.
1921, thank you. And we're in Hollowell interviewing
Sit back, Mama.
Marjorie
Sit
today.
back.
You have to sit back a little bit. Okay, so the reason I'm interviewing you is because Richmond, Maine is getting ready for their bicentennial. And you were born and raised in Richmond, and you must have a lot of memories of what it was like growing up in Richmond. So I'm here today to hear about some of your memories. So when you think back about it, what is the first thing you remember about being in Richmond?
I think that about remember.
As a child.
Oh, as a child.
What was it like?
How was it day-to-day living with?
Well, we just played around the dooryard. Yeah, all the kids came to my dooryard to play because we had a croquet set up on it. And there was a big porch on front of the house. And the kids all sort of congregated there on that porch. And we went from there.
And where was your house located that you grew up
On North Front Street. I think it was 41 way back then. I don't know what it is now. They changed all the names and numbers way back when on account of the fire.
I think that's about the village. Would you consider that part of the village?
It's the north end of the village.
Okay.
It's almost across the street from the road that goes, Lincoln Street, that goes up to what used to be the dump.
The house is right at the end of what now is Lincoln Street. I think it's still Lincoln Street.
Okay.
And there was a little store right next door to it.
Mm-hmm.
A little family store. Couple of ladies and, in the beginning there was a lady who ran that store. I can't remember her name.
Then Foster's ran it.
What?
Then Foster's ran it.
And then Chet and Clara and Chet's mother bought it and ran it. Yeah.
Who were your friends growing up?
Who were my friends growing up? Well, they were neighbor girls. Phyllis.
Joe?
No, Phyllis Cho, Phyllis and Lucille Wentworth. They lived. Lucille was Dot's friend, and Phyllis was my friend. Sisters, and we were sisters. So we kind of played together.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
I just had one sister,
What was her name?
Dorothy.
Was she older or younger?
Younger, 19 years younger.
Wow, that's
19 months.
19 months.
19 months, yeah. Oh, God, yes.
And what were your parents' names?
Earl and Pauline Preble.
And what did they do for work?
Well, my father, all the years, I guess years he was a farmer, but he had a garage. Years ago, automobiles were different, and he had what they call the automobile garage, and he sold gas and oil and repaired cars. It was right on the main street. It's where the flower spot was. What is there now?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It went out of business.
I know.
In that location, someone bought it and moved to the former jail. You know that building?
Yeah, I
that
know
had
the jail.
That's where the flower spot
I
is
heard
now.
it was, yeah.
Yeah, and they're doing a wonderful job there. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
The only people I ever knew was put in there was somebody that was drunk. And we called him Pistol Pete. He was a man that walked around the street, and he was supposed to be the night watchman. And all the kids called him Pistol Pete.
That's cute. Did you have grandparents that lived close by?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And what were their names?
Frank and Annie Reed. They lived close by. Was back and forth to their house. The other grandparents were out in the country on the Beetle Road. Didn't see them that much. And then they moved in town, and my grandfather Preble passed away. I don't know how old I was, maybe 7 or 8 years old. And then my grandmother remarried years down the road. She went back out in the country and lived. But
So, do you remember the Opera House?
oh yes, I went to different shows there.
What was that like?
Well, it was nice. It had a big stage, and my father was in a lot of the shows because years ago now you couldn't do that. They call them end men. In the minstrel shows, they blacked up. And he was in all the shows, and he was in business in town, and Dad was kind of funny. He could tell jokes, and he was good at that, being an end man, getting up there and jumping around. And we had a doctor, a dentist in town, that he was all, call him the interlocutor, and he would be the center all dressed the suit thing, and he would say something to the people, the end men, and they made jokes. And I always was in the chorus because Dad was in the show and I was in the chorus. Not that I could sing that well, but I always got to be in the chorus, which I thought was great.
Oh, I could imagine. That's why we want to restore the second floor of the Grange so we can bring that kind of entertainment back.
Well, it would be kind of nice because that was one of the things that Richmond did put on a good show. They really did. And it was a nice hall. Right now, there was a statue, they called it the Southern Block.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I don't know whether it was T.J. Southern, Southern, his statue now is down in the museum down the back. Did you know?
I think they're going to bring it back
Oh,
for the bicentennial.
Oh, are they?
I thought that the people that own the Southern House on Main Street, I think they brought it back. I'm not sure about that, but
Okay. Well, I know his statue's down there because last time I was down there to that museum, I saw it.
because it was in the Opera House, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was up over the stores. There was some kind of an alcove that was in that building, but when the fire, I don't know whether it fell down, they took it down to preserve it. I don't know how it got down. I was just a kid.
He was quite an amazing man.
Yes, he was.
T.J.
They
Southern.
called Southern Shipyard. They built ships in Richmond, you know,
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
way back when.
But that was before your time.
Oh, yes, it was. And I can remember my grandmother down at the foot of her lot. She was on the river. I can remember her telling how she remembered 3 ships tied up down at the end of that lot, right on the river. There was it must have been a big wharf there because you know how they piling up and
Yep.
of course in my day it was kind of deteriorating and falling apart, and that area down there was full of sawdust. And
I think the sawdust came from the ice houses.
yes, it did.
You
yes.
must remember, do you remember the ice houses?
I don't remember the ice houses up north of us on the river, but I remember one ice house down in town. Mr. Hall, I don't know, doesn't matter his name. But anyway, he cut ice down there and put ice in an ice house down at the foot of Main Street there for a while. After a while, the buildings got looking kind of terrible, and they ripped them down, but he did have an ice house down there at the foot of Main Street.
Interesting. Did you ever go to Swan Island
Oh,
growing up? Tell me about that.
well, I've been over there as a kid playing. My grandfather would row the boat over and take some kids over. We were supposed to play Cowboys and Indians. I was thinking about that the other night when I usually lay in bed and think about crazy stuff. Well, I was thinking about, I don't know, my grandfather would row some of us kids over there in that boat and leave us for all day. And we called it playing Cowboys and Indians. Well, what we did over there all day, I'll never remember. I don't remember. But he'd take us over and then he'd come back and get us around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We'd go over there. I don't know what we did. But in late years, I've gone over there on the ice. My husband and I'd walk across because we own a house there on the river. And we counted, I'm trying to think how many deer that year we counted going down. We didn't count them coming back because we figured some of them would be the same one. But I'm thinking we counted like 60 deer.
Wow.
It was overrun with deer over. Finally, they ate all the browse. You know, there's nothing over there for the deer to eat late years.
So you actually walked across the ice on the river to get
Oh,
to
yeah.
Swan Island with your
Yeah.
husband?
Yeah,
Amazing.
And
we
you,
took a sled.
you had the 4 deer come across.
What?
You had the 4 deer come across, and you fed the deer. That year you fed the deer, that you shake the apple.
Oh, yeah. Well, the deer came across in the fall. We had an apple tree up there on that lot. The deer came across before the ice to eat the apples. And Hugh thought it was kind of fun to see him over there. So he was feeding them. And then the ice came and they came trotting back and forth just like a little pack of dogs.
You named them.
And we had them named.
Oh.
Now, one was an old big buck, and there was 2 little ones. And I'm trying to think the names we had. One was kind of a slick looking deer. We called her Zha Zha.
And
the
Uncle Ralph.
And Uncle Ralph. Oh gosh.
I don't know what the twins was.
But Mickey and Minnie
Oh, that's.
and Zha Zha.
What was school like? Where was your school building when you started
The
school?
school building was over, they called it Emerson School. It was over there near where the town office is now. Long gone.
And who were your teachers?
All I remember was the 4th grade teacher was Marcia Bucher, and the Bucher School was named for her.
Absolutely. And what kind of a teacher was she? I think she was very beloved.
Well, she had order in her class, I'll tell you that. She did. I remember one of the boys was acting up one day. She practically picked, well, they wouldn't allow a teacher to do that now. She picked him right up on the shoulders and lifted him right up some stairs. She could handle her class.
She was a disciplinarian.
Yes, she was.
She cut Spike's ear.
What?
Cut Spike's ear with that ruler.
Well, I don't know about that, but she was kind of tough on the kids. Well,
How many children were in your classroom approximately? Was it small or large?
I can't remember in grammar school, but there was about 15 that graduated in high school.
15 graduated
15.
in high school.
We started out, I think, with maybe 30. But kids left school then to go to work.
To work, to help support their
Right,
families.
right.
They had to.
Right.
Because you lived during the Depression.
Yeah, but you know, I never knew anything about the Depression. We always had what we needed and what we wanted, and Dad always worked. I never knew there was a Depression.
And you also, you farmed, they farmed partly, so you had plenty of food. You had enough food.
Right. Well, we did farm down there. Dad had a little garden, but my grandfather had a little garden, but it was just a little vegetable garden. It wasn't a big garden.
Did Richmond celebrate like parades and things like that,
Yeah,
that you remember growing up? Tell me about that.
I don't remember parades growing up, but when we got older, we always had parades on the holidays, you know.
And what happened after you graduated from high school?
What happened was I went to work in the woolen mill. Stupid, got married.
Was the woolen mill Ames Mill down on the waterfront? Where was the woolen mill?
The woolen mill, there was a woolen mill. They had 2 shifts going there at one time, day and night crew. When I went in there on the night crew. I hated working nights, 2:30 to 11. Then I got on the day crew, and then when they went to piecework, they put me in the office to do time piecework. I did office work the rest of my life.
Well, you worked a long time.
Yeah.
Was that Ames, was that down on the waterfront, the woolen mill, located in Ames Mill
Yeah.
at that time? It was.
It's still there now.
It's still there, yes. It's a beautiful building, big building.
What's in there now?
They have storage, air-conditioned storage units.
Different storage room?
Yeah, the Acord, do you know the Acords? They own that building now. Chris and Teresa Acord,
Okay, yeah.
they own that building now. That's interesting. Was your family active in the
Oh,
Grange?
let me look at that.
What is it?
I don't remember that, but that's the ferry boat going to Dresden Ferry.
Oh, can you hold it up and we'll show it on the camera?
No, I don't remember it, but I know there was a ferry boat going there.
Turn it around.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Down. A little down. Yeah, we got it. That's good.
Where'd you get this, Jan?
That's the calendar I made.
Oh,
It's a calendar.
oh yeah, on the tree.
Did you know Polly Roberts personally?
Yes, I did.
Tell me about Polly Roberts. I
Well,
want
she
to.
was a great lady, and she was so involved with the town and all that. But I never socialized with Polly,
Mhm.
as far as, being friends and going places and doing things with her. I just knew it.
Wasn't Lorena Prothero her mother?
Yes.
Yeah,
And wasn't she a relative of yours?
no.
Oh, she wasn't?
She was a friend of my grandmother's.
Oh.
Well, here's a picture of the old station. I spent days in there running around on my way to school every day.
Let's see it. Show it to us. A little down, a little bit. Oh, isn't that nice? Is that right by Kimberly's restaurant now?
No, it's across the street from the funeral home.
Okay. All right. Oh, yes, of course. All right. You can put it down.
On the way to school, cold mornings, we'd run in there, jump around the pot-bellied stove, get warm.
You know, they didn't have buses back then.
Imagine all those muddy streets and those long dresses those ladies used to wear, dragging around in the mud.
That's amazing, isn't it?
My hands don't know.
What did you know about Lorena Prothero?
I didn't know much about her. I was a kid. Mom used to visit with her, but we didn't, I don't know, when we went down to her house and Mom visited with Lorena, Dot and I stayed outside, I think, Oh, and now this is all along the riverbank where the mill, up at the end of Millbrook Stream, I can't understand where he got his power from. Percy Chetley had what they call a mill down in there. I think probably that's why they call that Millbrook Stream. Because at the end of that stream, it emptied into the river. But he had a little sawmill down there, and I was thinking about that since we've been talking about this interview. What did he use for power down in there? There was no power. Was there enough power from that stream? How would he? I don't have a clue.
Maybe he had a wheel.
He must have had a wheel or something with enough water coming down that stream. They call it Millbrook Street. Mill, the end of the mill, and then Brook was a mill. And the street that took you down in there was off of Main Street where the waterworks is now, the little street that goes along the edge of the water. And that went right up to that little mill. Well, I was a kid. Stuff like that didn't bother you. You ran around town and didn't pay attention to anything.
That's true. There was a big scandalous murder that took place in
Yes,
Richmond.
there
I
was.
wondered if you could tell us what your memories are about that time.
Well, it was just a big scandal in town because the place out in the country where they had all those wild parties. Different women were out there, and the doctor was out there. In fact, the doctor was out there. I don't know. All I remember that it happened, and it was a big scandal in town. But other than that, I don't know any of the particulars.
A lot of people talk about it even today.
Yeah, probably did.
Yeah.
Well, and the people today, like me, don't know any more about it than I do, literally,
Yeah.
unless they were there. If they were out there, that
I think everybody that was out there has passed away.
I think so too. I think people that were out there to those parties, they've all gone with all the memories. Yeah.
There was I heard that there was a tabernacle, like a tent, a revival.
That was up at the campground, but I don't remember that. I've heard my mother talk about that, and she was up there in the campground waiting on tables when she was a kid.
Wow. Interesting.
And when I was a kid, there was signs of that community along the river, because Dad had a boat, we'd be up the river, and they'd say, well, that's a campground. There was sign, there was a little station up there years and years and years ago.
Mhm.
But you know, a lot of people from out of state, Massachusetts, used to come to Richmond, like the Dresden House over on I've heard Mom and Dad say, my grandmother, more than Mom and Dad, say that there'd be quite a few people over there that come there for the summer.
Sure.
The Dresden House, they called it,
Mhm.
right across the river from the bridge.
You know, there were some famous musicians that came from Richmond. One, R.B. Hall.
Oh, yes.
He
and
was a
his-
composer.
Yes, and he's buried out there in one of the cemeteries.
Evergreen.
Evergreen, yeah, Hobby Hall. And his house, he lived in a house not too far, diagonally across up over the bishops. He lived in that house where the bishops lived.
Where Bud Niven lived,
Yeah,
so he lived at,
I think he lived upstairs in that house once. I think when I was a kid, he lived there, or had lived there.
really, okay.
Richmond always had great bands from the high school. There was a lot of
yes,
music.
Gordon Howe, we had our own band. Gordon Howe danced all over the place. He used to go out of town and played in town. Yeah,
Phil Densmore played the accordion.
what?
Phil Densmore played
Yeah.
the accordion.
Yeah, and Chet Foster played the sax. I'm trying to, who played the horn? I can't remember. Yeah, we had a band.
So you made your own entertainment.
Yeah, and we had dances at the high school, you know. In fact, I learned to dance. Paul Jack was our principal of the school, and I thought it was great that he asked me to dance, you know, principal of the school. And he used to ask me to dance with him when I was a kid in school, in high school.
You must have been a good dancer. Who taught you?
I think he probably might have taught me. I thought that was something the principal asked me to dance. Big Paul Jack.
Are there any other characters from Richmond that you remember that would stand out in your mind growing up?
Oh, I'm trying to think of that guy that was always drunk, and they was putting him in jail. I can't think of his name. But he's the only one that I saw going to jail.
So how old were you when you got married?
I was 18 the first time.
Wow. You've been married twice?
Yeah.
So what was your first husband's name?
I don't even want to talk about it.
Okay. Want to talk about your second husband?
Yes, that Hugh.
He was a nice man. I was lucky to find him. He was really a nice guy.
And did you remain in the area after you married?
What?
Did you remain in the Richmond area?
No, I went down to Kittery. I lived in Kittery because he worked in the shipyard.
Okay.
He was a electrical engineer down there
Mm-hmm.
in the design division. So he did design work. I wish I'd kept some of his drawings. They were fantastic. Now they do it all with computer, but his drawings were really wonderful, and I thought somebody should have them to keep them, so I gave them to Ann. I thought maybe David would keep them, you know. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have any. I wish now I kept some, because there's different men that have been in here. I would have liked to show them his drawings,
Mm-hmm.
because now it's all computer.
Mm-hmm.
Do it with the computer.
Yeah. Well, Richmond is a beautiful community, and it's rich with wonderful people. And I just love living in Richmond. And I wondered, what are your thoughts about Richmond today, the community?
See, I don't know many of the people in the community today. It was a nice little town to live in, to bring up a child way back when. You could run all over town, didn't even worry about anything. The kids would put a tent out in the dooryard, and the neighbor kids come over and sleep overnight on the dooryard. It was a nice little town. And I don't know what it is today. I don't have a clue what's going on down there today.
I'm curious to know if you could think about what did your mother teach you? What stands out in your mind? What did you learn from your mother? If you could say one thing about your mother, what did you take from that relationship? You can share a little bit of that.
I'm trying to think of this saying my grandmother used to say. Nana Reed had a saying, and I wish I could remember that. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That was her saying. And she used to remind me of that all the time. And it really kind of stuck with me.
That was your grandmother.
Yeah, that was your grandmother.
What about Nana?
How about your mother?
She was a nice lady.
Wonderful cook.
Oh, wonderful cook. She had stuff in the house for all the kids to eat if they ever came. Didn't have to ration it out or anything. I remember when I was older and I was working for a lady, I was getting those two kids ready for school, and then I'd have to stay for lunch and get their lunch, and I used to make a cake once in a while. Well, my mother would let, if we had cake in the house, the kids could eat it or whatever. And if Mom went to Eastern Star, where she belonged to Eastern Star, we wanted to cut a cake, we could cut it and eat it and give it to whoever visited. But anyway, I remember I was staying with those kids, and they said something, and I said, well, I made a cake, you know. So I gave them each a piece of cake. Well, boy, I heard about that the next day. But she didn't want, her food was kind of rationed, and she didn't want me giving them kids any cake when I stayed with them again.
Now, how about your grandfather? What do you remember from your grandfathers? You had two. What stands out in your mind?
I don't remember much about my grandfather Preble. Like I say, he was a farmer, and he died when I was 7 or 8 years old. I don't remember much about him. But my other grandfather was a wonderful man, really was. He used to take us in the boat, rowing up and down the river, and take us up to what we call the ferry. There was a little store up there where you could buy candy and stuff. He'd row us up there for candy. And in the winter, we'd go down to her, after church, we'd go down to their house, because my father worked in the garage, and he was working. So Mom would take us down there to their house. And in the winter, he'd make pulled candy. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, taffy.
Taffy.
Yeah.
We called it pulled candy. He used to make that for us, popcorn and all that good stuff. He was a nice guy.
He sounds like it.
We got down here roller skating. You used to go roller skating?
Oh yeah, we had a roller when I was growing up. Yeah, there was a roller skating rink out on the county road. It's a county road now. I think it's Main Street goes all the way out.
Okay.
And there was a roller skating rink out there. We used to go roller skating.
That's the first I ever heard of that.
Oh, you've never heard that?
No, I never heard. That's great. You had a lot of fun there.
Somebody said there was two.
What? Give me that.
Somebody said there was two roller skating rinks in Richmond, but I...
No, never was two roller.
Okay.
There was just one roller skating rink. What I'm trying to think of other stuff like Ice House, Harry Tars, and the mill, Little Mill. Richmond Bee, Richmond Bee, we had a newspaper.
Yes, tell me about it. We have all the copies at the archive.
Oh, you've got all I know that there was a Richmond Bee there.
Mm-hmm.
And what was her name? Gordon Howe's mother worked there. He was the one that had the little band in town, Gordon Howe.
Yes.
His mother worked in the Richmond Bee. But other than that, I don't know much about the Richmond Bee. I just did have a note here about it. And down at the end of where the Richmond Bee was, We called her Ma Hinckley. She had a little hamburger shop down there at the
Okay.
foot of Maine Hill.
Yeah,
There was a theater down there, I remember going to a theater
for movies?
for movies, there was a
There was a
theater.
movie theater?
Well, yeah, but it didn't last long. They built what is now the
Napa store. It was-
Napa. Yeah, they built that and then the movies moved up there. And, there was a drugstore in Richmond on Main Street, and on one side of it was what they called a ice cream parlor.
Oh, nice.
They had little chairs and table, and we'd go in there. Mom would take us down the street. We'd go in there and sit over there, have an ice cream soda or something, and the little round chairs, a little round table with a little chair. It was a drugstore,
Yeah,
but over on this side, they had it fixed like a little ice cream
Nice.
parlor.
that's sweet.
That was kind of nice.
The
I saw it.
Little's had a clothing store too, the little girls,
Yeah, but that was later life.
that,
When I was a kid,
that wasn't there.
no, when I was a kid, the little twins, one of them was a nurse.
So what else was on Main Street as a, what,
Well, we had a shoe store there.
yeah, but as a kid, when you grew up, what was on Main Street for companies, for businesses?
Well, we had a shoe store, and I bought my first high heel. I begged Dad so I could wear high heel shoes. And he bought me a pair of high heels, and we had a shoe store. We had a clothing store. And then they had what you call a dry goods store, cloth and towels and all that stuff there. And there was a store there that sold a lot of different kind of merchandise, a lot of dishes. In fact, I think that candy dish came from that store. That was my grandmother's.
Wow.
I think we gave her that for some kind of a present, for some kind of a birthday, or Christmas or something. That came from that little store there. They had nice dishes there. Maybe some other there. So I don't know.
I want to ask you what you remember about your father.
Well, I remember my
Yeah,
father.
and what did he teach you that stands?
He was
with-
a disciplinarian. We had to behave or else.
Smoke cigars.
What? And he smoked cigars. Oh my God. I hate the smell of cigars to this day. They told us we had to they took rides every Sunday afternoon. Because I had sat in the back seat, Mom sat in front, and he puffed on that cigar. I was so sick, constantly. Oh dear God. I'd beg him to let me stay home, but they wouldn't let me. They'd have to take me. And I remember my grandmother had a brand new coat. And I was so caustic, I put my head down in her lap and I vomited all over her brand new coat. I remember that because I don't think they ever got the smell of it out, a coat way back then. But anyway, that's about the only thing I remember about my father. He was a disciplinarian and he smoked those darn old cigars. Oh.
It's a great story. Today you're 101 years old. You'll be
Right.
celebrating your 102nd birthday next May.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know, what is the secret to living such a long life? And you're so beautiful and you're so sharp and it's wonderful.
Well, I kind of did what I wanted to. I was lucky through the years. I did basically what I wanted to do.
You
And
danced a lot.
I danced my feet away.
And you ate good food.
Oh, I always had good food from the time I was born. My mother was a wonderful cook, and they had a garden, and we ate well, and I did that all my life. And she always made us eat breakfast before we went to school. We never went to school without having breakfast. Maybe some of that has rubbed off on me through the years, so I always cooked and had well-balanced meals.
And you used to exercise.
And I exercised and walked.
Mhm.
When I first came here, they have an exercise group, I went to exercise at zero. Now I can't do what I want to do, my shoulder, this rotator cuff is, I have to do this to put dishes in the cupboard, but that's minor, I'm fortunate.
You are. You know, in retrospect, if you could make a statement, in retrospect, if you could make a statement to the world, what would your statement be? What would you say to people today after living this very long life? And
Well, you just gotta take care of yourself, take care of your own self,
that's,
really.
be responsible.
You gotta be good to yourself,
Absolutely.
take care of yourself, and also be good to yourself, that you do things that, you know, if you don't do things when you're younger and going along in life, just like I tell everybody, if you don't do it, then there comes a time when you either don't want to or you really can't.
It's very good advice. And I want to thank you so much. You've been just such a pleasure to meet and to talk to today.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.